And I'm going to ask Dr. Bailey, the principal at Whites Creek High School, to lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Awards and recognitions, Mr. Henson.
Thank you. We're excited to share that an assistant principal from Overton High School is one of 24 aspiring principals from across the state who has the honor of participating in the inaugural Governor's Academy for School Leadership. This year-long fellowship program is a partnership between the state of Tennessee, Vanderbilt University's Peabody College, and local school districts to build a pipeline of highly trained school principals and ultimately to improve school effectiveness and performance. Each assistant principal has been paired with an experienced principal mentor. Upon completion of the academy, participants will be expected to pursue placement as a school principal in their district, and it says or region, but I'm just going to say in their district. I'm going to ask Dr. Terry Schrader, our Executive Officer of Leadership Development, to recognize the Overton Assistant Principal as well as her school principal and her mentor principal, and to describe how they're all involved in this exciting program. I'll turn it over to you, Terry.
Okay. Austin. This is Beatrice Salgado. She is an assistant principal at Overton High School, and Dr. Jill Pittman is her current executive principal at Overton, and Dr. James Bailey is the executive principal at Whites Creek High School. Ms. Salgado was selected as a fellow for the Governor's Academy for School Leadership, and Dr. Bailey was selected as her mentor. This statewide Aspiring Principals program has been tailored to prepare high-caliber assistant principals to become transformational leaders in schools across Tennessee. Both Dr. Pittman and Dr. Bailey were a part of Ms. Salgado being accepted into the program. Dr. Pittman had to recommend her and agree to give her release time that she would need when she was accepted into the program, and Dr. Bailey, along with Ms. Salgado, had to participate in a rigorous selection process before being named as members of the first cohort of the Governor's Academy. The one-year fellowship includes a comprehensive support system and curriculum that's been designed in partnership with Vanderbilt University Peabody College. The fellows will participate in training sessions 1 weekend per month at Vanderbilt, practice-based internships one day per week at the Mentor School, individual coaching sessions every other month, and a week-long summer institute at Vanderbilt. Governor Haslam said principals are responsible for hiring and retaining great teachers, being the instructional leaders in their schools, creating positive learning environments, and managing complex operations within their buildings. Successful organizations have great leaders at the top, and one of the most important things that we can do to transform our schools is to have each one of them led by a great principal. Tennessee has many great principals already, and I agree with Chris. MNPS has great principals already, and we want even more. I agree completely, and we are privileged to have this opportunity to develop another great principal for Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools. And now, if y'all would join the director and the chair.
Is that yours?
No, it's Joanne.
How are you? Good to see you. Thank you. How are you? Good to see you. Yeah. Get a picture in a moment.
You know, like I put my eyes on like 14 different things.
Congratulations.
Don't be so optimistic.
Secondly, our school district had an exciting basketball season this year, with the East girls team winning the state championship for their division and the Whites Creek and Hillsborough boys teams making it to the state tournament. We will formally recognize the East girls team at the next board meeting, but tonight we want to recognize another great achievement for our district in this sport. This year's Class AA Mr. Basketball, which means this is the best basketball player in the state of Tennessee in this class, was selected from our own Maplewood High School. I got to see him play 4 times this year, and I say it was a privilege to see him play. Every year, the TSSAA names the best female and male basketball players in each of the divisions. 3 finalists are named, and then a winner is selected. I'll ask Dr. Ron Woodard, principal of Maplewood, to formally recognize Mr. Basketball Bo Hodges and his basketball coach. Ron?
Good evening, distinguished board members and Mr. Henson. Over the past 2 years, I've had the distinguished honor of getting to know a special young man at our school who is affectionately known as Bo on campus. Mr. Demetric Bo Hodges is an exceptional student and a student athlete who is highly regarded by his peers, loved by his community, and also nearly adored by his faculty. He truly exemplifies the core values of our school, which are pride, dignity, and excellence. He strives for excellence in all of his endeavors, and he represents character on and off the field. On the court, he averages 23.4 points per game. He led the state in assists. He led the state in steals. He averages 13.8 rebounds per game. He was the District 10 AA MVP. He was the He was selected to the All-County team in 2014. He was All-District in 2015 and 16. He was All-Region in 2015 and 2016, and named as Mr. Basketball in Tennessee here in Metro Nashville Public Schools. Most importantly, though, Bo knows academics. Bo has an 85.8 cumulative course average, and he's taken the most rigorous courses at Maplewood High School. His current schedule consists of AP U.S. History, Algebra 2 Honors, Chemistry Honors, English 3 Honors, Sociology, Medical Therapeutics, and Intro to Cinema Studies. He likes the movies. Bo is an athlete and a student who is college-bound, who has great career aspirations and a bright future ahead of him. He plans to major in physical therapy, and right now, as far as colleges, he is undecided at this time. He has 1 more year. Bo is only a junior. So he is back next year at Maplewood High School. So undecided at this time. I'd like to recognize 2 very special people, and of course, they've been very instrumental in our program, and they've been outstanding supporters. And of course, that's his parents. I'd like to ask Tim and Monique Hodges to stand. Let's recognize them. They have been phenomenal supporters and outstanding parents, and been so gracious to us in the program. I also want to salute my basketball coach, Mr. Ty Wilson, who was here, and he was also named as the Coach of the Year. Congratulations to Coach. So ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, please allow me to introduce to you the 2016 Mr. Basketball, the first Mr. Basketball winner in Metro Nashville Public Schools since 2002. We've had many finalists, but he is the first winner in 14 years. I present to you, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Demetric Bo Hodges, Mr. Basketball.
Come on, Bo, let's see a smile. You weren't ready. I didn't mean to.
Congratulations.
Good news. You want to say anything else, Ms. Pierce, about that wonderful performance we had earlier?
That's good.
Oh, wow. Let me see.
All right. Tonight, we also get to recognize several MNPS teachers who've earned National Board Certification, which is an advanced teaching credential given only to educators who complete a rigorous application and review process. Put simply, it's the standard bearer for excellent teachers. And according to the National Board of Professional Teaching Standards, research has shown that students of National Board Certified teachers learn more than their peers in other classrooms. Our district now has well over 100 National Board Certified teachers in classrooms and leadership roles across the school system. And I'll ask Susan Thompson, our Chief of Human Resources and Talent Services, to introduce this year's honorees, which I think are all here, which we're very glad to have. You also have a listing at your seat of all of the names and schools of these 6 new National Board Certified teachers. So thank you all for being here. Susan.
And to be exact, we have 112 National Board Certified teachers in our district. And I just want to say a little bit more about that process. I'm sure that these ladies will appreciate that because it's a rigorous process that they go through. It's about 2 years to be able to achieve that certification. It's based on 5 core propositions. Those propositions are that teachers are committed to students and their learning. Teachers know the subjects they teach and how to teach those subjects to students. Teachers are responsible for managing and monitoring student learning. Teachers think systematically about their practice and learn from experience. Teachers are members of learning communities. And those are the 5 core propositions that National Board Certification is based on and the standards. And it is it's created by teachers for teachers to really elevate the profession. Like I said, and as Mr. Hanson said, it's a pretty rigorous process, and they could probably nod in agreement about that. It is performance-based. It's based on multiple measures. It is peer-reviewed. It is voluntary. They stepped up to do this, and it's very valid and reliable. They've had over 110,000 teachers in all 50 states to go through the process. So we're very excited to have 6 more to add to our rosters, and I'm going to tell you who they are, where they work, and what their area of certification is. And there are 25 areas of certification that you can get board certification in. Laura Eady, who is at Mountain View Elementary, has her certification in Reading Language Arts Early and Middle Childhood. So Laura, there you go. Thank you. Congratulations. The second one I have is Selena Judkins. She is also at Mountain View Elementary. They've gotten 2 this year. Her certification is Reading Language Arts, Early and Middle Childhood. Congratulations. Then we have Carrie Lukey from UNA, Mountain View is on a roll there, UNA. And hers is a generalist in middle childhood. Congratulations. We have Marlene Miller. She is at Granbury Elementary. Her certification area is Reading Language Arts, Early and Middle Childhood. There you go. Congratulations. Michelle Sheriff, who is at Bellevue Middle, and she is a generalist middle childhood certification. Congratulations. And Angela Spiller, who is at Granbury Elementary, and her area of certification is in physical education, early and middle childhood. Congratulations, ladies. Thank you so much. Congratulations. And as I told them, we are really looking at our National Board Certified teachers to help us. We have one of the grants that you heard Julie McCarver talk about in the budget process, where we're utilizing our National Board Certified teachers in the district to work with our getting teachers. We really want to expand the opportunities to tap into their expertise in working with our teachers. And so we're really excited to add them to the group. So thank you, ladies, and congratulations.
Is one row okay? Do you need a
Let's go ahead and do 2 rows. Thank you.
call on the back?
Where were you going? Where were you need to go?
Freeze. Did you get your picture? Hold on, you got another one. Hey. Hold on. Just come. You good? Oh, you good? Everybody good? All right, thank you. Okay, sit down.
Before the board meeting, we did get to have a musical presentation of a collection of songs from the 1971 classic Godspell performed by Hillsborough Players. They were really excited to come, and I had the pleasure of seeing the full performance at the last of February. It was a great night to support them with support from our Metro Council reps, Russ Pulley, Angie Henderson, and Mary Carolyn Roberts as well. And we really appreciate the direction of Kristen Moon and Will Butler for their work in the theater program at Hillsborough. And it's fun for me that Jesus lives down the street and I often see him jogging around the neighborhood.
Thank you, Ms. Pierce. The consent agenda is as follows. 1A, recommended award of contract for mechanical, plumbing, and electrical engineering services at various schools, Krell Engineering. B, recommended award of contract for architectural services for classroom expansion at Casa Asafran Early Learning Center, Allard Ward Architects. C, recommended award of contract for new Tusculum Elementary School, R.G. Anderson Company. D, recommended approval of change order number 6 for Stratford STEM Magnet School renovations, Messer Construction Company. E, recommended approval of change order number 4 for Joelton Middle School additions and renovations, Southland Constructors. F, recommended approval of request number 15 for purchase of furniture, Overton High School additions and renovations, Guy Brown Interiors, GBI. F, G, awarding of purchasing and contracts. 1, awardees from invitation to bid number B16-26 for concrete sidewalk demolition and installation. 2, Blackboard Inc. 3, Brights Inc. 4, Catapult Learning LLC. 5, Council of Great City Schools. 6, Dell Marketing LLC. 7, Demand Mechanical. 8, Environmental Rating Scales Inc. 9, Insight Education. 10, Jarrett Builders Inc. 11, McCarthy Jones and Woodard LLC. 12, Nashville Freedom School. 13, Rush Trucking Center, Nashville. 14, S&H Computers Inc. 15, Total Mechanical Solutions LLC. 16, TMP Services. 17, The Verdin Company. H, CTE Textbooks Adoptions. Madam Chair, I recommend that we approve the consent agenda as read.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of approval of the agenda as read?
Aye.
Aye.
Ooh, y'all need to wake up.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Mr. Pinkston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the last meeting, I brought notice that my intent to bring a resolution calling for a moratorium on further school takeovers by the Achievement School District, but seeing as that we don't have a full complement of board members tonight, I'd like to roll this conversation to the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Reports, Mr. Henson.
Thank you, Dr. Gentry. For the first item, I want to invite Robert, Elizabeth, and Hank to the podium to give an update on what's happening or what's happened so far during this legislative session. Robert and Elizabeth represent the Coalition of Large Area School Systems, or CLAS, on our behalf, as well as the three other large urban districts across the state. As you know, Hank works for the district doing our government relations, and they'll walk you through some key issues, tell you about their impact on our teachers and students, and then welcome your questions. So I think, Robert, are you kicking us off?
Thank you, and thank you for having us tonight. Got hopefully a short presentation. We'll leave plenty of time for questions at the end. The first thing we wanted to start with is the budget that Governor Haslam has proposed and the General Assembly is currently considering. In this year's budget, Governor Haslam has proposed what has been described as a record proposal for K-12 education. It's the most amount of money that has been proposed since 2007 when BEP 2.0 was passed. but this is the largest spending proposal for K-12 without a tax increase in Tennessee history. And that proposal includes, as you'll see, $100 million for teacher salaries, nearly $30 million that would fund the 12th month of health insurance for teachers. As you know, from 1992 until last year, the state funding formula only included 10 months of the cost of health insurance when that component of the BEP was calculated. Last year, the 11th month was added at a cost of about $30 million, and this year, another $30 million is included in the governor's proposal. Also, since 1992, the state funding formula has included $20 million for technology. That number's been static since 1992. This year, there is a proposal for $15 million in recurring state funds for technology. And with the added amount of about $5 million coming from local governments, that $20 million will be doubled if this proposal is approved. The last two items, there's nearly $20 million included in the governor's proposal for high-need students, including ELL and special education students, and almost $50 million is included what is generally called BEP inflation, and that is the cost of enrollment growth and other inflationary costs for the components that make up the BEP. As you can see, the total improvements that are proposed are a little over $223 million. The estimated improvement, and this is as of a week or two ago, for Metro is $14.6 million. Along with the governor's budget proposal, Governor Haslam has proposed a BEP Enhancement Act. And essentially what this bill does is codifies the way the BEP has been calculated and the money distributed for the last 9 years, since 2007. The biggest part of that, I was going to say for large school districts, but for all school districts, is statutorily locking in the physical capacity, the way physical capacity is determined for each school district. You'll see the physical capacity will be locked at 50% CBER, 50% TASER. TASER is that physical capacity model is the physical capacity model that had been used from 1992 up until 2007. And CBER is the physical capacity model that was adopted with BEP 2.0. But that, we can, if you have any questions at the end of this, I'm not going to bore you with physical capacity until you ask me some questions, but we'll be glad to answer any questions at the end of this presentation. The state share of salary will remain at 70% under BEP 2.0. The state was to have paid 75% of teacher salaries, but that will be locked in at 70%. And also with this bill, the salary component for teacher positions created within the BEP will be set at $44,430. And the last piece of the governor's BEP bill, it begins to eliminate the final pieces of CDF. Metro is one of fewer than a dozen districts that benefit from CDF. This year you get about $18 million that goes into salaries for your teachers. It's a recognition the fact that it's more expensive to live in Metro and other school districts receiving CDF. That stands for cost differential factor. It's cost of living adjustment. But this bill would reduce the current amount by 50%, and if this bill passes, the original CDF calculation would be 25% of what it was before BEP 2.0 was passed, And the plan is that as more salary money is added to the budget, CDF would be phased out completely. But as you can see, that will cost Metro about $8.7 million. The $14 million figure includes this reduction, but this year we're currently getting between $17 and $18 million. And the status of that bill, it has cleared both education committees and is being considered by the finance committees this week. We are fairly certain that the governor's budget and BEP bill will pass with, the budget portion for K-12 will pass with little, if any, change to the current proposal.
And I'll give you a quick update about vouchers, which is an issue that we have fought diligently this year. Senator Gardenhire's Opportunity Scholarship Bill passed the Senate last year easily. The House has deliberated on that quite a bit longer. The bill this year made it all the way to the House floor, but our estimation is that it's 3 or 4 votes short. Chairman Dunn, rather than letting that bill fail or taking it off notice, has it held on the desk, which is sort of a parliamentary procedure posture that allows him an opportunity to reconsider that bill should he feel that he has collected more votes. So that's an issue that we'll continue to work on until the very end of session to make sure it stays in that parliamentary posture and that it isn't reconsidered for a vote. We will do everything that we can to continue to work against those this year. We have sizable concerns around vouchers because of the impact that it has on the urban school districts, that it would be entirely focused on your districts as well and doesn't take into account the traditional funding problems that you all see that are different from more rural areas anyway. So we continue to advocate on your behalf that those are sizable and substantive funding issues that you have to deal with in addition to the others, and to explain what a problem that is for each of you all.
There are 2 bills related to charter schools that we wanted to highlight for you all. The first bill relates to the reporting requirements that we as a charter authorizer and other charter authorizers around the state would need to make. And so it would have reporting requirements around academic performance, financial data, and student data. It has passed, the Senate amendment would designate the State Board of Education as the oversight authority for all Metro, of all charter school authorizers. And the impact on MNPS, we have worked with our charter school office to determine what information we already collect. We collect a lot of this information, and so it wouldn't create an additional burden for us, but significantly, it does look at the fiscal impact that would have on us that would help help establish the need for more charter authorizer fees. The prognosis of this bill is that it should be approved with the House amendment. The second bill that we wanted to tell you about was a charter school and rural school facilities grant program. This would create a grant opportunity for charter schools that operate in MNPS and across the state, and for some rural schools to apply to the State Board of Education for grants that would help them with facilities improvements, technology, and other things. For MNPS, that would of course apply to our charter schools, and it would apply for charter schools that are operating in district-owned facilities, and so they would get a grant to improve those facilities, which of course remain district-owned. This bill should pass, but they have not yet received an appropriation for this, and so right now it's still uncertain about whether they would receive the funding.
Representative Bill Dunn from Knoxville has proposed a constitutional amendment through a House joint resolution that has been approved by the House Education Committee. Is currently pending in the House Finance Committee. This bill, the constitutional amendment proposal, would essentially amend the education clause of the Tennessee Constitution to say that education policy in Tennessee shall only be the purview of the General Assembly. And this is an attempt to limit the subject matter jurisdiction of the courts, and is a reaction to the 2 lawsuits that have, the 2 adequate funding lawsuits that have been filed against the state. There's an Attorney General's opinion request that is pending to confirm Representative Dunn's statement that this would not limit the court's jurisdiction on equitable lawsuits based on equity. And the notion is that this would only impact those lawsuits that impact adequacy. Just trying to predict what will happen. A resolution, a referendum resolution going through the legislative process requires that one General Assembly approve the resolution by at least 50% or by 50%, and the next General Assembly would have to approve the resolution by 2/3. The votes in the Education Committee and it looks like the votes in the House Finance Committee are lining up very similar to the votes on vouchers. So we think that there's a chance that the sponsor could get the required 50% this year, but getting 2/3 in the next General Assembly is going to be a much higher hurdle. But the proposal, if it is approved by 2/3, the General Assembly would be on the 2018 statewide ballot.
And I'll talk to you a little bit about some legislation that the governor's office brought forward, thankfully, around assessments, teacher evaluations, and 10-ready. As we all know, there were a number of implementation difficulties this year, and we are very grateful to the leadership from the Department of Ed to make sure that this is not going to be an opportunity to penalize teachers because of problems with implementation of a new testing system. So this legislation has passed both the House and the Senate and is going through the necessary legal steps for the governor to sign that, and we anticipate that it'll be signed any day now to create that safe harbor again for our teachers and give them some flexibility. So if these are good scores, they have some opportunity down the road to look at them as part of their evaluation, but offers them that one-year protection from including that in their evaluation this year. There were several bills addressing the Achievement School District this year that were brought forward. Most of those were combined together and referred to a summer study program so that the legislature and concerned stakeholders can really sit down and talk about that. The department has committed to the legislature that they will participate in an overall comprehensive look at the ASD to make sure it's meeting the needs of the district. And we anticipate seeing some substantive ASD changes in 2017 because of that working group. However, in the short term, Senator Tate and Representative Ackberry have one piece of legislation that passed the Senate yesterday and is continuing to move through the House, came out of House Budget Sub today, to require the department to rank schools in the priority zone so that we know, based on the Department of Ed's data, which schools the ASD is choosing to take, that those schools will be ranked from 1 to 100, for example, however many are there, and we will know which are the best performing priority schools and which are the worst performing priority schools, so that as you all look as a district with the ASD over time as to which schools they may take over, you'll be able to see clearly whether they are taking over those lowest performing schools or not.
On a positive note, we made some progress towards high-quality pre-K across Tennessee. As we know, there was a study done by Vanderbilt University that called into question some of the lasting impacts that pre-K has had and some of the disparate quality of education across the state in terms of pre-K. Senator Dickerson and Representative Mark White brought this bill that is really modeled after what we're doing at MNPS. We took a lot of legislators for tours over at the Ross Early Learning Center. All of them were very impressed, and this bill sought to really play good defense by playing a great offense, and we were able to talk about raising the quality of pre-K instead of doing away with pre-K. And so this bill has passed both the House and the Senate, and it's headed to the governor for his signature.
The next bill we want to talk about, we almost left off because we thought it was dead this time last week. But Senator Mike Bell and Representative Susan Lynn have a bill that would require students in public schools to use restrooms and locker rooms that are assigned to persons of the same sex as shown on the student's birth certificate. Last week, this bill was sent to Summer Study Committee, but later in the week, request was made to reconsider the House Education Committee's action on that. And that action will be considered next week. You can see the potential impact on Metro could require facility changes such as adding additional unisex bathrooms, but the bill has a $1 billion fiscal note. If it is approved by the Education Committees, it would be referred to the Finance Committee in both houses. Usually a $1 billion fiscal note is all you need to kill a bill in Tennessee General Assembly unless somebody wants to fund that $1 billion. But this year there has been testimony from the proponents of this bill that you don't have to worry about that $1 billion fiscal note because the federal government has never withheld money for these kinds of laws, or for states passing these kinds of laws before. I think it's significant that the governor of South Dakota earlier this year vetoed a similar piece of legislation because of his concern that the federal government would withhold funds. But it's also significant that the state of North Carolina held a special session last week to pass a similar bill. They did pass it and the governor has signed it. But this is a bill that, as I said, it'll be taken up again next week.
And we have perennial issues of elected school superintendent that came up this year. All of those bills have either been defeated or taken off notice. Also, all of the bills that relate to mandatory school start dates are off notice. That it's a long-standing discussion with the tourism destinations in East Tennessee that they'd like to see school start after Labor Day. We recognize that it's your prerogative to make that decision for your own schools based on the needs of your board and your administration, and continue to advocate to make sure that you have that flexibility. So those bills are also all off notice for the year this year as well.
And you all will probably remember last year we talked a great deal about the issue of in-state tuition for undocumented students. This bill fell by one vote last year, but has the ability to come back since we're in the middle of the same session. The impact on MNPS is so clear. We've heard from our principals and our students that giving all of our students the ability to have a future beyond K-12 education obviously helps their lives, but also helps us as a district out as they're working harder and harder to get to that next level. It's passed the Senate already, and we'll see what happens after we pass the candidate filing deadline as legislators go back towards their home districts.
In the last bill we wanted to talk about, I wanted to say at the beginning of our presentation, everything that we presented on tonight, one caveat, everything could change except for this bill. This bill is now law, and it authorizes your board to use electronic, or it allows board members to participate electronically the same way that every other local board of education has been able to do for the last several years. But that bill by Senator Dickerson and Representative Powell is Public Chapter 532. And I will be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, we'll start. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation. I've got like 5 either points or questions. The first one is about the $100 million for teacher raises. What does that equate to in terms of raises for teachers across the state? Do we have a sense of that?
Chris is probably better. Last year, that same amount of money was about 4%, between 3 and 4%. But that was the amount of money that was added to the BEP. That wasn't necessarily a 4% raise for teachers, but it is a 4% increase in the amount of the salary component.
Yeah, the State Department and the Governor's Office have been really clear in trying to not give a percentage associated with the dollar figure because it does create a lot of confusion because you have a minimum state salary schedule for teachers, which is well below our salary schedule for teachers, and everything that in the past, when a percentage increase has been proposed, it's a percentage increase on that minimum state salary schedule for teachers. And so the state and the Governor's Office have really tried to not equate that dollar figure to any kind of percentage increase. They are asking school districts to spend those dollars on teacher compensation, whether it be salaries or benefits. If a particular district, their average teacher salary is below the state average, I believe there's a requirement for those school districts to actually spend all of those dollars on teacher salaries, which we're well above the state average. And so as far as what that would equate to, I don't know, because they really haven't publicly said this equates to a certain percentage raise for teachers. What they're saying is, here's a pot of money that we are putting into the formula in the form of increasing the salary unit cost for instructional personnel in the funding formula up to that $44,000 plus figure.
So once this passes and we receive this money, then you will talk with us more about how we will use the money.
Well, we'll have a little bit of that conversation this evening under teacher compensation.
Okay, great. Okay, great. The second one is, thank you so much for your work on vouchers. I really appreciate that. And I wanted to ask about the authorizer fee. I think that the State Board of Education gets a 4% authorizer fee, and ASD gets a 3%. Metro schools get 0. Is that correct? And
I don't know what the State Board gets or the ASD gets, and I don't know if...
Yeah, is that correct? Is that information
There's a
correct?
proposal still moving through the General Assembly that would allow the State Board to withhold up to 4% from the charter schools that they approve.
Okay, so that hasn't passed yet?
It has not, but likely will pass.
We anticipate that it will.
Okay, great. So that will make room for a lot of discussion about what we can do in metro schools, I think. The safe harbor for not using the 10 ready scores. Now, I want to be sure that does not mean, let me put it differently. Teacher evaluation will still have a component of TVOS scores. Is that correct? Okay. So it'll be from 13, 14.
Could you all speak up, because the camera's on her and the people can't hear you?
Yes, you're correct, Ms. Beering. And to clarify, it will still be calculated, and the teachers will still receive them, but it's up to the teachers about whether they want to use them or not. Is that correct?
Okay. That's correct. So they'll have an option of using either 10 ready or the TVOS scores.
Or prior year scores.
For prior years, yes.
Or prior years.
Yes, that's right, for two prior years, is that correct? Yeah, okay. The ASD ranked schools, I love that. We know that clearly didn't happen when Neely's Bend was taken over, so I'm so glad to see this moving through. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
So on the bill, on the restroom bill that has $1 billion fiscal note, walk me through what that process would be if it does pass.
How the money would be withheld?
Well, I mean, does the governor have to sign that then, if it's passed, right? Okay.
No, the governor could veto it.
That's what I'm saying.
We have a very low veto override. I mean, you override a veto the same way you pass a bill. So if you have passed a bill, you can likely override a veto. But the governor's office has opposed that bill.
Has opposed it?
They have.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So this is a question either to Mr. Henson or to our class representatives. If the governor's bill to halt implementation of the BEP 2.0 goes through, then that means BEP 2.0, which is generally considered nationally to be highly equitable, distribution model will only be half implemented. Therefore, is the prevailing point of view, not necessarily in the legislature, but anywhere else, that all of a sudden we have, a funding model that's only partially equitable as opposed to fully equitable under the BEP 2.0 if implementation had proceeded, and what could that mean to not litigation that we might bring, but maybe to litigation that's already underway by the other districts?
Not sure how would the change in how would codifying the current distribution impact those?
Yeah, so let me be clear. I'm kind of thinking and talking at the same time. So if BEP 2.0 continued implementation, we would have implemented what is generally considered to be a highly equitable funding model nationally. I mean, the state of Tennessee gets A ratings for equity based on the BEP 2.0 model, which is, of course, only partially implemented. What does stopping implementation of that model do to how we're viewed potentially in terms of equitable school funding?
Well, the Hamilton County lawsuit is, at this point, is only about adequacy. It does not address equity. But the Shelby County lawsuit is about 50% equity, 50% adequacy. And Shelby County is claiming through the non-full implementation of BEP 2.0 and other things that their district, the state is not properly sharing in the cost of running their district. Short answer to your question, it would not impact the Hamilton County lawsuit. It probably helps Shelby County's argument that they are not being equitably funded.
Is there any conversation in the legislature about the fact that we're essentially could be stopping implementation of what's generally considered to be an equitable funding model? Do they even care, I guess, is the more blunt question?
If you look at the talking points for this bill, which the administration posted online, they have proposed this bill because of threats from small schools to bring another equitable lawsuit if BEP 2.0 is fully implemented. The General Assembly is 75–80% rural. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but most rural legislators are not concerned.
Thanks.
I have a question about the assessments and the safe harbor. I've had some parents contact me and ask if there's any conversation about creating a safe harbor for students. And I know that the district has said that if the scores are not back before June, well, if they are back by June 1st, they'll be included, but if they're after, which is what is anticipated, they won't be. But some parents just would like some assurances or guarantees.
I'll tell you what we have been told, and we even before the problems with 10-Ready and the online test, we were told that the results would not be back in time, even before those problems, for them to be included this year in a student's final grade. We've been told that privately. Nobody has said that publicly in terms of the discussion of the safe harbor bill.
Okay, so there's not a conversation to create one for the students. We've got it for the teachers, but not the students. Okay.
Right.
I think it's been pretty clear that the results will not be back.
Okay.
In fact, we've been given, I think, a September at the earliest kind of time frame for that data to be back because of the switch to the new tests.
That was worth all of the trouble we went through.
Okay.
I was looking for Paul. Oh, there he is.
Just to clarify, the results that are coming back in September are the achievement levels. That the standard setting won't occur till this summer. The quick score reports that are typically used for grades do come sooner, but all indications are it'll be after the school year. By law, if they come at least 5 instructional days before the end of the school year, they're to be included in the grades, but the communication we've had from the commissioner is that that's very unlikely.
Thank you. You have something that's good? Okay, thank you all very much. I especially appreciate the synopsis in writing and look forward to further updates. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I'll ask Chris Weber, our Director of Student Assignment Services, to come up to discuss a proposal for rezoning a portion of Haywood Elementary into the Norman Binkley School Zone as a means to address overcrowding at Haywood. There's been much community discussion leading up to this proposed rezoning plan, and there are more meetings still to come. Tonight, we just want to update the board about the status of the proposal. We'll come back at a later date after additional community meetings to seek the board's approval. And so I'll turn it over to Chris. Ryan Latimer's passing out the proposal now.
Thank you and good evening. Mr. Latimer is passing out to you a packet that outlines the proposed changes. These are draft changes for the Overton cluster to address overcrowding and population growth. The digital packets were emailed in your board agenda, I believe, last week. To get started, I'd like to just begin with an overview that, again, this is a draft, and we're here tonight to share this with you for information purposes only. Later in the presentation, I'll outline the additional community meetings that will be held to gather additional input, and so we wanted to start with you first to just share the current proposal as it stands at this time. The proposal that we will be discussing is about, would be implemented in 2017, and so it would be a full year out. So it's a ways down the road, and we just want to make sure no one gets confused that it would go into effect this year. The reason what we're discussing here is due to overcrowding and significant enrollment growth in the Overton cluster. Haywood and Tusculum schools are both of the most severely overcrowded schools in the Overton cluster. However, at Tusculum, there's already been capital funds appropriated, and the design is already underway to help build a brand new Tusculum school that would address overcrowding and the facility condition of Tusculum. However, Haywood Elementary School remains overcrowded at 116% of capacity, and the school is already at a capacity of 755 students. So typically we don't like to build schools any larger than that, or even 800, and so therefore we're left with looking at other options to address the overcrowding for Haywood. Now, this chart gives you an overview of the capacity, the enrollment, and capacity and projected enrollment for schools in the Overton cluster. As you can see, Haywood Elementary School is 115%, 116% of capacity, projected to grow to 925 students by year 2020. Tusculum Elementary School is projected to grow to 775 students, which would be 145% of capacity, which is why both of these schools are our highest priority at this point in time. But you will also notice that Creve Hall at the top is currently over capacity as well at 110% of capacity, and many of these schools, including Creve Hall, are projected to continue to increase in their enrollment. And so you can see that all the way through when you look at the elementary schools. With the exception of Shane and Granbury are located to the south. These schools have recently received expansions and renovations, or not renovations, but expansions, and Oliver Middle School was also recently received an addition. Croft Middle School is a lottery school that we control the enrollment, so about 60% of the students come from the zone and about 40% come from out of zone, so we're able to prevent that school from becoming overcrowded. But McMurray is slightly overcrowded, and I'll mention the impact of the possible rezoning to McMurray as well later in the presentation. You'll notice at the bottom that Overton High School is currently overcrowded, and we currently do have capital funds allocated to do design work and construction at Overton. To familiarize you with the Overton cluster as a whole, this map outlines the entire Overton cluster. The schools we're referencing are to the top, the northeast section, which is the red area, which is Haywood Elementary School, and Tusculum Elementary School is the brown zone just below Haywood Elementary. Both of those zones feed into McMurray Middle School, which is fairly close to the center right next to Tusculum, close to Tusculum Elementary. We mentioned Norman Binkley, which is adjacent to Haywood. It's the purple area to the top, right adjacent to Haywood, and just below that is Creve Hall, which is the yellow school zone. Both Norman Binkley and Creve Hall feed into Croft Middle School, which is located to the very northern edge of the cluster, adjacent to the zoo. To the south of the cluster is Granbury and Shane, as well as Oliver Middle School. This area has recently, as I mentioned, already has received expansions, but we do continue to expect for the cluster as a whole, and especially to the southern end of the cluster, to continue to grow in future years. So as we look to address the overcrowding at Haywood, because we can't make that school any larger, we first desire to get community engagement. So what we seek to get through the community engagement process is input from the community about how to draw the zone lines, what factors should be considered, and the specific neighborhood characteristics that could go into a rezoning plan. Overall, there were 16 community meetings that are outlined in your in the narrative that was provided to you that happened between September 2015 and March of this year. The visioning process, there were 2 specific community meetings that focused on the visioning process to look at the actual rezoning. And in this process, we took a map of the Haywood zone and we broke it up into smaller areas. Now, when we asked the community to start drafting on these maps and giving us direct input, we shared with them some of these considerations which are taken into account when we craft a rezoning plan. These considerations include things such as we typically try to prevent impacting families. Rezoning is a difficult situation, and we try to limit the impact to families and rezone as few of people possible. In addition, we try to prevent rezoning families multiple times. So if we were to rezone somebody, we would typically not want to follow in subsequent years and do additional rezoning and move them more than once while they were at the same school. These are a couple pictures of one of the visioning meetings that was at Haywood. The meeting was really well attended and also represented the demographics of the actual Haywood community. So there were a lot of Latino families as well as Burmese families with multiple translators and headsets there. We set up, I believe, about 10 different tables with working maps, and we asked for the families to actually draw and give us input. So this map is a sample working map that was shared with the community, where you could see that the individuals actually drew on the map. The Haywood zone was broken up into very small segments, and each segment of the map outlined the number of elementary students and middle school students so that they could begin to figure how could we possibly combine these areas to develop a rezoning. Now, not only did we ask them to suggest what areas might be most logical to move, but also if we had not already separated these areas appropriately to neighborhood characteristics, they offered us feedback on where we should draw these lines and how they should be adjusted to reflect the neighborhood. What you see listed in this specific map was consistently brought out through community engagement. It may be hard to see, but there's 2 X's marked on the map to the southwest part of the red zone. Both of these X's mark apartment complexes that are heavily populated by the Burmese families. And one of the consistent themes that we heard from the families is that they really enjoy being involved in Haywood School, and due to transportation barriers, the families often walk to the school. And so while their students can ride a school bus, for the parents to continue to be involved, they typically walk. And so they were really concerned about being rezoned to a school further away, especially on the other side of Nolensville Road, because it would affect their accessibility and ability to continue to be involved in the school. And those were the X's to the bottom. So what you'll see in the current proposal is looking more in an area to the north of that. Now, the current construction that's already approved and design is underway is for Tusculum Elementary School to build a new school on its site. Tusculum has 19 portables, and the new school, or the school currently has 19 portables, and the new school will be large enough to serve almost 800 students. Overton High School also has capital funding that's been allocated to address the 14 portables that are currently used for classrooms, and there'll be roughly 18 additional classrooms added to Overton when the construction is complete. The proposed construction that we're here to discuss with you tonight that would be, that this rezoning plan would support, would be doing an expansion at Norman Binkley. Norman Binkley is adjacent to the Haywood School Zone, and what we're recommending is to build an additional 15 classrooms to Norman Binkley. That addition would also include a new kitchen, cafeteria, and also new administrative space as that school is enlarged. In addition to Norman Binkley, we're suggesting that we expand the size of Creve Hall by adding a 7-classroom addition and also doing interior renovations of several small rooms that would net out 3 additional classrooms. So the total would be to add 10 additional classrooms onto Creve Hall. And at Creve Hall, it's limited by the size of the site, so that's as many classrooms as we can currently get within the design. Future capital, and in the capital improvement plan now, also stands to seek the purchase of an additional site for a new elementary and middle school somewhere in the southern end of the Overton cluster for a new elementary and middle school. While the land is earlier in the capital budget, the actual capital funding to build the new elementary and middle would be a couple years down the road in the capital budget. The proposed rezoning is to move approximately 150 students from Haywood into Norman Binkley. If this rezoning change is approved, we would also recommend that the 2 highest grade levels rising in the school, 3rd and 4th, would be allowed the opportunity to stay there through a grandfathering clause. However, typically the grandfathering clause does require that the parents provide their own transportation. The middle school piece, we are suggesting that we rezone about 70 students from McMurray to Croft. And the reason for that is to maintain consistent feeder patterns. If the students are rezoned into Norman Binkley, then they should also follow the same feeder path to Croft so that the families follow the same students. However, in this case, it's not as urgent of a need, and so we would recommend that this be done in a year-by-year transition, where the 5th graders would be transitioned the first year, and then 6th, and then 7th, and then ultimately 8th grade. And during that transition period, that school bus transportation would be provided to both schools, so that if a family had both a 5th grader and an 8th grader, they could choose between the 2 schools and take the buses there. That transition will both be easier on families, but also it will be best on the schools, because with Croft being a magnet school, a lottery school with optional students coming in, this would allow an easier transition on that program. Instead of just adding a group of new students on top of the existing school, we can phase that in year by year and then adjust the out-of-zone enrollment to maintain an even balance at Croft. Creve Hall, the site there makes it difficult to build a school any larger than 600, and with current population projections, it looks like the school will continue on a pace to grow by about an additional 100 students over the course of the next 5 years, which would be through year 2020. The map displayed on your screen outlines the proposed area, which is highlighted in the purple area 1A, and so this area is being recommended to be moved from Haywood into Norman Binkley, and as you can tell, just south of that are the 2 apartment complexes that I mentioned that remain in the Haywood school zone. So this area would be proposed to both be changed in elementary school, and then for middle school be rezoned from McMurray to Croft. The following chart outlines the projected impact of this by enrollment, as well as the new construction and how the new school capacities would be increased by the additional construction. So what you can see is that the capacity of Creve Hall would push closer to 600 at approximately 580, and with the projected enrollment growth of them being at 550, that would leave the school about 95% of capacity. You could see where Haywood is currently Haywood would decrease to roughly 95% capacity, but we do see that enrollment continuing to grow, so they will remain fairly full at Haywood.
However, in Norman Binkley, we want to be careful through the rezoning that we don't simply rezone the school and fill it to max capacity, because we want to leave room for an additional student growth of roughly 50 to 60 students to grow to the year 2020 so that that school is not overcrowded with the additional growth. At Tusculum, you can see that there's limited growth. However, the school is so severely overcrowded that the new construction needs to be built to address that. Anytime we do a rezoning, the district has a diversity management plan that calls us to consider the diversity impact. And so what you find listed last in your narrative is the diversity impact analysis. And so when we look at this plan, the impact to Haywood is fairly neutral. The area that's being recommended to be rezoned from Haywood to Binkley is the demographics are fairly characteristics of the Haywood zone as a whole. And so while the population might decrease or the school enrollment might decrease, there would be very little impact or change on the overall diversity of Haywood because that area changing is very similar in nature. However, when we look at Norman Binkley, the area being proposed to be rezoned into Norman Binkley does have a slightly higher number of Hispanic students and EL students. And so the estimated impact there is that Norman Binkley would likely increase the number of Hispanic students, or the percentage would likely go just over 50%, as well as the EL population would also increase some as well. The impact to McMurray and Croft is fairly neutral as their demographics are roughly the same. In your packet, there's a detailed diversity analysis. I won't go through these numbers in great detail, but just to share that you can see the exact estimate impact based on both racially, socioeconomically, and by EL and disability as well. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is simply a draft plan at this point that was developed based on the community input that we've received thus far. Following this meeting, we're going to be going next Monday to Haywood to get additional input from the community about this plan. We will then be going on April 11th to Norman Binkley to get input from the Norman Binkley community. And then that same week, we'll also be taking it to the Diversity Task Force meeting and get feedback from the Diversity Management Task Force. Our goal would be that after we get additional community input, that we would ultimately bring it back to the school board once we have sufficient input and ask for you all to vote on a final plan. But we need to go through these additional steps to see what feedback we have to offer and if any other changes need to be made. Just once again, as a reminder, any changes would not take effect until 2017-18. That concludes my presentation, so I'll open it up to questions.
Thank you for the presentation, and I understand that the work that you all do is not easy, and it's, part science and part art, and that you guys are doing your level best to do this in an equitable way. I just have one request, and then I want to ask Mr. Henson to talk out loud a little bit about what the future looks like in this part of town. So the request is, on the back page, you've got the detailed diversity summary for the 2 elementary schools that would be affected by the rezoning, as well as the 2 middle schools. But can we see those numbers on email another day for both the racial and ethnic diversity, as well as the income and other numbers for all the schools in the cluster? Because, I think the schools that are not on this chart, that's a telling story that we need to be weighing. At the same time, we're looking at Haywood and Binkley. So that's a request for some additional data. So, Mr. Henson, my concern, I should say my constituents' concerns, everyone from council members to parent leaders and others in the Binkley area, is that we're moving around lines is a logical short-term solution, but the logical long-term solution is a new school. And I know we've talked briefly about that, but the reality is, and this is a part of town that I partly grew up in, so I know it well, there's no greenfield left in that part of town to build anything new. So we're going to have to be very aggressive about looking at adaptive reuse of commercial properties along Nolensville Road. There's a massive, for example, empty Kmart shopping center that's sitting at the corner of Nolensville and Harding Place, which is right in the center of the Binkley and Haywood zones. we don't have to talk about whether that particular property has been looked at, but that's the kind of stuff we're going to have to start doing, and we're going to have to start doing it pretty soon, right? So I know there's been a strong point of view to build on flat available land, but there's nothing left down there. So, what are you thinking about the future?
And very good question, and it's the same question we've been asking internally, and one of the reasons why we originally came up with the Lowe's property was trying to look at being creative. We do have in our capital budget proposal a request to purchase land for an elementary school and a middle school. Mr. Profit is here. He has taken over for Mr. Murdoch as far as continuing to look for land, but I agree with you. I know that it's going to be something that's difficult to find the type of land we need as far as number of acres, as far as topography, and as also that's accessible with the kind of roads we need for a school, et cetera. So we'll be looking at not only property, vacant property, but we'll also be looking at some of the adaptive reuse that you talked about, because it's going to be very difficult to find the kind of land that we need in that part of town.
Have we, this total random question, have we, or do we have the power of eminent domain when it comes to commercial property, and have we ever exercised that, or is that something that resides solely with general government?
It resides with the Metro Council, and we actually have some very recent experience with that with MLK. With the addition that's going on at MLK, we actually did go through that process. It's always a process of last resort, but we did go through that process on a piece of property that we had to have to be able to do the addition at MLK, and that's gone through council. So that's always a possibility, and of course a possibility of last resort if there's no other way for us to be able to do what everyone agrees we need to do.
Thank you.
Chris, I asked you this, I think, before in a capital needs and finance meeting.
Yes.
How do you reach out and work with the charter schools in the area to even help with the projections or even help with some of the alleviation? And even specifically with Valor, since they have an elementary school that's been approved. Have you reached out with Todd Dixon and talked through any possibilities?
So I've not talked personally with Todd, but I did have conversations actually today with Carol Swan about this exact question. You are right, Valor is situated immediately in this area, in between the two Haywood Zone and Tusculum and Creve Hall's right there off Nolensville Road by the old Lowe's building. And they are approved, they've got the two middle schools now, and they are approved to actually open, and one of the schools would grow to be a K through 8 school, and then the other school would grow into a high school. And I'm not sure if it's finalized or to what point, but I know that they are seeking the purchase of the Lowe's property from what I understand.
It's done, they're starting construction.
So that's complete. It was my understanding today that that was actually close but wasn't finalized. When we talked today about the opening of the elementary school, they actually were approved to open the elementary school starting this upcoming August, but due to lack of actual building facilities, they were going to start with, I believe, grades K and 1 in the first year, roughly 120 students in each grade, so that would be about 250 students. But we've been told that that is not planned to be opened this August, and when I asked the specific question today, it was that they're waiting on the building and they're waiting on a location to determine exactly when that will open. Now, they are looking, the elementary school, from the estimates that I've received, is anywhere from 110 students per grade to 130 students per grade. So that would net out to be anywhere from 550 to 650 students in that immediate area. Now, the projections that you've seen in your packet tonight, they do not account for the charter school opening or new charter schools. But what we have began to look at is the current Valor Middle School is already pulling students. So we have historical data there to tell us where they are recruiting and where those enrollments are coming from. So we've looked at proportioning those same percentage marketing areas to apply that to the elementary schools. So if the elementary school was to open, we could then estimate where the students might come from and how that might factor into the long-term projection growth. But at this time, we don't know exactly when it will open, and Carol Swan and I were talking about the need to reach directly out with Todd Dixon to get more details on that, not only just about the elementary school, but also about the high school and the size of the high school and when that will come online, so that we can look at the impacts of, because we know that our high schools in all of Southeast Nashville are overcrowded, and we're also looking at possibly needing to open a new high school down the road. And so, we need to understand those impacts and when those will come online.
Okay. I would encourage you to coordinate with him.
Okay.
He's so collaborative, and it's a tool that we have.
I'll do so. Thank you.
Mr. Pinkston.
Mentioned a second ago that you had been looking at Valor and where they were marketing and pulling students from. Do you have the kind of general ballpark splits that you can share with us?
So I do have the ballpark splits here. Now, this is based on current students that are currently going to Valor right now, is that 6% of the overall, let me give you the overall picture, 42% of the Valor students come from the Overton cluster. Okay, now when you break that 42% down, 6% are from Norman Binkley, 4% from Creve Hall, 9% from Haywood, 5% Tusculum, 12% Granbury, 7% Shane. And so that's how that 42% is broken down by the different elementary areas.
And where are the rest of the students coming from?
I don't know. The remaining roughly 60% would be coming countywide, but I don't have the actual percentage broken down by the other high school clusters.
Could you, as part of whatever communication you're going to have with them, talk with them about that too? I think it'd be interesting to know how many students are coming from the Hillsborough cluster, for example, and others.
Well, we do actually have that data. I just don't have it in front of me to give you. So if you would like that, I could share that information with you.
Yeah, I'd love to see it, and I think it's just important to recognize, Dr. Gentry and others, that in a school that's only participating at a 40-something% level in terms of the cluster, it's going to be limitations to what they're going to be able to do to help us manage growth. So let's manage our expectations there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Weber?
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Our last item is on teacher compensation, and at a previous Teaching and Learning Committee meeting, we spent quite a bit of time discussing teacher pay. Tonight, we want to go into a little more detail about the market analysis and research that was done to inform our pay proposal. And I'll ask Craig Ott, our Executive Director of Operations for the Human Resources and Talent Services Division, to get us started. We also have James Hockaday, our Director of Strategic Compensation. So, Craig, I'll turn it over to you.
With a 5-slide presentation, I just want to go on record as saying I want to make sure you see it.
Yeah, we tried to limit it to 5 slides, right? So we had a meeting with the Teacher and Learning Committee several weeks ago, and we just wanted to now formally present our findings thus far to the entire board. So we've condensed that presentation down to 5 slides, and if there's questions after that, then we can discuss those. Thank you. So I'll turn it over to James, actually.
Thank you, Craig. Good evening. To get started, I'd like to cover some background information and give you some context on the pay analysis. As Chris mentioned, this was originally presented in some form to the Teaching and Learning Committee. But I'd like to point out that for teachers and for all of our employees, the district is always working to develop strategies to attract, retain, and develop the best. While salary is an important component of our larger package, it's just a piece of that puzzle, as evidenced here in the graphic on the screen. The goal is to create, within budget constraints, the most attractive mix of these elements that speaks to our employee groups. we choose which of these to put the focus on, hopefully in a thoughtful way that results in the most value in the eyes of our teachers and employees. Through the recent work on teacher retention, meeting directly with teachers, we know that salary was not listed as a primary reason teachers might consider leaving the district. While we know that salary, with that being said, we know that salary is an important factor and does have an effect. So with that being said, let's look specifically at the teacher salary analysis. The detail was originally presented to the Teaching and Learning Committee on February 24th. This is not intended to be an exhaustive review of that data, but merely to highlight the key takeaways from that analysis. The analysis looked at salary over multiple points in a teacher's career, rather than just looking at starting rates or average salaries. Salary was reviewed at starting pay and at 5-year increments up to the maximum pay. It's important to note the peer group that includes cities in our region that are similar to Nashville and those with which we compete for teacher talent. There are some challenges in comparing data across districts. A number of factors affect pay, and some of those that we try to keep in mind are cost of living differences between cities. Pay data must be looked at in the context of the local and regional labor market. That is, some cities have a higher cost of living and thus higher wages. Some districts have additional performance stipulations in their scales, which make it more difficult for direct comparisons to be made with our scale. Some districts have larger attraction and retention issues than others. That is, some have a more challenging environment and thus have to pay more in order to attract teachers. Some districts operate in a more competitive environment where multiple districts are vying for the same teacher talent, which can increase pressure to raise salaries. Some districts also offer additional pay elements like incentives and bonuses that either offset a portion of the base salary or help to supplement base salaries. These changes make comparing across districts part science and part art. Moving to slide 3, let's first look at the summary data of MNPS as compared with regional peer cities. The peer cities include Memphis, Atlanta, Austin, Charlotte, Dallas, Louisville, San Antonio, and Washington, D.C. Please note, this data has been adjusted by cost of labor differentials between these cities. This adjustment is meant to account for the expected variation in wages between all occupations in these cities. It's similar to cost of living, but more conservative, and helps put pay data in the context of all local wages and local buying power. On this slide, each grouping represents a place in the teacher's career, beginning with starting salaries, next salaries at 5 years of experience, 10 years up to the maximum pay. The detail in each grouping shows how MNPS compares with peer cities at that point in a teacher's career. Note that this slide only shows data for teachers with bachelor's degrees, but the data for master's degree follows a similar pattern. As I mentioned, additional detail was provided in a package that was presented before and has been distributed to the board. The first column in each grouping represents MNPS's starting salary at that point in the teacher's career. It's outlined in red on the slide. Beginning with the first grouping from the left, MNPS starting salary is competitive with others in this peer group, as shown in green. At the 5-year point, shown in the second grouping in red, our current MNPS scale doesn't show an increase and thus begins to lag the market, with almost all of the peer cities paying more. MNPS scale continues to lag the market at the 10-year point. Moving forward, by the 15-year point, the MNPS current structure is again competitive with other districts. We do, however, slightly lag the market at the maximum salary. I'd like to point out a few statistics here as a reference point. About 50% of our current teachers have less than 5 years of experience. About 65% of our teachers have less than 10 years experience. So with the majority of our teachers in this 0 to 10-year range, it's a crucial time for us to be paying competitively. To summarize, while we're competitive in starting teacher salaries, were not increasing their pay quickly enough during the early stages of their career to be competitive with similar cities in our region. In addition to looking at regional peer cities, we also compared MNPS against other Tennessee districts. Those include Williamson, Rutherford, Sumner, Wilson, Hamilton, and Knox counties, and Franklin and Murfreesboro city schools. Again, similar to the last slide, starting at the far left, MNPS starting salary leads all others in the comparison group. We are also competitive at the 5-year experience point versus these districts. At higher experience points, the current scale is for the most part competitive with these districts. To summarize us versus other Tennessee districts, we are, for the most part, competitive. It's important to note, though, that we would expect that we would lead most of these districts as we are larger and more urban. So to summarize the takeaways from the market analysis, our starting rates are competitive, both against key regional peers and Tennessee districts. Our current scale doesn't keep pace with the competition at the very important 5 to 10 years of experience points. The current scale is mostly aligned with market peers at 15 to 25 years of experience. The max salary on our current scale slightly lags our regional peers. And as I mentioned, bachelor's and master's degree are showing a similar market lag. To begin to address these issues, we are proposing, as part of the budget planning process, a new draft salary schedule for teachers. This new scale preserves a great deal of the structure of the prior scale while addressing the areas that we are lagging the market, specifically the 5 to 10 year range. Please note that on the new scale, teachers will receive step raises. That is, this will not be an across-the-board increase as in years past. Employees will have step advance to a higher step on the new scale. The new schedule has not been finalized. We are in the process of seeking input from various stakeholders, including MNEA. Let's discuss now the impact to teachers. Under the new scale, every teacher will receive an increase. All teachers will receive a larger step increase on the new scale than the step increase they would receive if they remained on the current scale. All teachers, except first-year teachers, will receive an increase equal or greater than last year's increase. First-year teachers will receive approximately a 1% increase, and the pay increase amounts will vary some, with those lagging the market receiving larger increases. Now let's look at the investment required to move forward with this new teacher scale. From our current budget ask, the total pay increase for certificated staff is approximately $10 million. For comparison, the 2% across the board for certificated staff in 2015 was approximately $7 million. That puts the additional investment versus an across-the-board increase at the prior levels at approximately $3 million. In closing, this new scale will help us stay competitive with other peer districts and further our goal of attracting and retaining great teachers. With that, conclude and open for questions.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Spear, for arranging this last night. Brock, I want to do something, though.
I want to clarify this, because this is going to get posted as a part of our agenda. And I think the change I'm going to make actually better supports what we're doing. The title of your slides on slide 3 says regional peer cities, and we know that DC, San Antonio, Dallas, Texas, and Austin, Texas are not regional peer cities, but these are the cities that we're looking at as part of the director search. So I think it's important to say that as much as we value the talent of these cities from a director and school district leadership perspective, we know that the data that we're seeing that made them attractive for a director search, that work is done in the classroom by the teachers and by the building level leaders. So I think it's important to point out that they're actually comparing this to the same somehow, or how we changed the title slide, but the title of this slide. But I want to make sure we highlight that we, just like we're looking at these districts for talent for district leadership, we're looking at these cities for talent and compensating our school level leaders accordingly.
That's correct. We do feel this list parallels that other.
Yeah, so they're not regional peer
other
districts.
analysis.
So if we can somehow change the title of that one slide.
Sure, we'd be happy to.
That would just make me happy. Because I think it's just important to point that out.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? So this is actually just eliminated the need to do this presentation as part of the budget committee. So this is explaining the increase you'll see in those budget line items related to teacher salaries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Ms. Spearing. All right, going into committee reports. You're the only one.
Okay.
Making us stand.
Yeah, the budget committee is continuing to work our way up to our vote on April 12th, and we met today to discuss the federal programs and grants as well as nutrition fund, and we will meet next Tuesday, April 5th at 4 o'clock here in the boardroom to continue really going through the components of the budget, and then we will vote on the 12th, and then I believe we present before the mayor on the 14th. Is that right, Mr. Henson? 1 o'clock?
Yep.
Something like that. Okay, that concludes my report.
All right.
Mayor, I'm sorry, let me get that again. Mayor is the April 14th?
Yes.
Thank you.
On Mary's birthday.
My birthday at 1 o'clock.
Happy birthday. Thank you. We couldn't think of any of those. All those people at your party.
There you go.
We start with announcements? Okay.
Yes, thank you. I see TJ is still here. I wonder if Ron Woodard is still here.
He's gone.
He's gone. All right. Sounds good. Thank you for being here, TJ. I just want to say that although Maplewood High School has only begun working with chess and learning to play chess recently, they have made it to the finals, and they are one of 4 teams to qualify for the finals out of 67 mid-state regional tournaments. And congratulations to Maplewood. The team was created as a part of the College Zone program at Maplewood. Way to go. Hunters Lane staff presented at the National Association of Secondary School Principals in February, and they presented about reclaiming the American high school. It was well attended by principals from all over the country. Excuse me. Next Saturday, which is April 2nd, I'd like to invite my fellow board members and the community of Nashville to an event at Unity of Music City called Nashville Chooses Peace. It's from 10 to 3. Churches and organizations will come together to foster a spirit of unity and peace. There will be a kids zone with all sorts of activities, including face painting, and a rock climbing wall. Local artists and healers will be on hand. There will be food trucks will be available. So I hope that you can join us next Saturday. I hope that all of our families had a good spring break, and I want to say thank you to our chair, Sharon Gentry, for her support in postponing our meeting that was supposed to be last Tuesday to this Tuesday so that we could be with our families during spring break. Thank you.
Ms. Kim?
I have 2 very short ones. I want to say a huge thank you to Senator Steve Dickerson and Mr. Phil Ponder. They were both our keynote speakers at the McGavick Cluster Coalition Luncheon today. There are a lot of folks in attendance to hear about the good things that the coalition is doing for the students at McGavick High School, and it was just to expose different community members about what we're doing and the scholarships that we give away every year. So I want to say thank you to each of them. And once again this year, the NAM Foundation has named MNPS as the 2016 Best Communities for Music Education. The collaboration that we have with Music Makes Us and our music industry folks is just amazing, and they're making big changes, making a difference in the lives of our students in our schools. That concludes my announcement.
I just want to bring notice to the board of a resolution in support of the ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act, and I'll be bringing that resolution to the next board meeting. And since you're there.
No further business. This meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you.
How I do.